Discover the truth. Everything you want is within your reach. Say that out loud. Let the words sit in your chest for a moment. Soft, heavy, possible. Not as a wishful slogan, not as a tease, as a working hypothesis to test in your body. What if the thing you've been chasing, love, clarity, freedom, a different job, a calmer nervous system, is not evidence of what you lack, but a memory calling you from a version of yourself who already has it? What if desire is less like an empty hole and more like a breadcrumb trail from the future, leaving a scent you can learn to follow? Hold that image. Breathe into it. The breath you take now is a simple test. Can your body, right now, entertain the idea that a different you exists and is reachable? If the thought tightens your chest, you've found your work. If it softens you, you've found a door. Here's what I'm going to do with you over the next moments. I'll show you the reframing that flips want into access. I'll sketch the mechanism, part metaphor, part neuroscience, part somatic reality, that explains how attention and embodied rehearsal change what feels possible. And I'll begin to give you the first practical ways to start becoming the person whose life is already the one you want. This isn't magic cell or spiritual bypass. It's invitation plus method, with caution where caution is due. If this is speaking to you, type "I'm already living it" in the comments right now. Do it before I say another word. Let the platform know you're here and let yourself say it to the world, even if your inner critic laughs. That small public act is a tiny calibrator of identity. You're not alone in how this shows up. Most people live inside a loop that sounds harmless on the surface, but is quietly corrosive. It goes like this. You notice something you want. You imagine it for a moment. Then doubt creeps in. You check reality to see if it's true. Reality reports back the same old evidence. You feel deflated. The body tightens in a habitual way that says, "Not yet." The loop repeats. Visualization becomes a ritual of disappointment. The very act of paying attention, key to manifesting, becomes the mechanism that pulls you toward the familiar. Picture it. Your attention is a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever you point it, the room arranges itself around that light. But if you're holding the flashlight and your hand shakes with fear, if your body expects lack, your light trembles. It highlights the cracks, the things you don't have, the reasons you're not enough. The brain is not a neutral witness. It's a prediction organ. It's constantly guessing what's next based on memory. And memories live in the body as much as in the mind. Posture, tension, gut sense, the rhythm of your breath. When desire attaches to a body that has a long record of "not yet," the signal becomes noisy. Your attention tries to point the beam at the future, but your nervous system pulls it back to what it knows. That tension is the hidden architecture of why people rehearse a dream for years and never feel it arrive. Let's call out a few familiar scenarios so you hear this in your bones. You imagine a partner who sees you. You rehearse holding hands, laughing late at night. Then you catch yourself scrolling, looking for evidence. Your chest tightens when a text comes in late. You interpret silence as proof the dream is impossible. Or you imagine a new career, rehearsing interviews, imagining the desk, the people. Then doubt arrives. Who am I to take that role? You check your bank account, your resume, the old patterns reassert themselves. Or you picture better health. You feel the energy, the morning run. Then an old injury flares, the routine slips, you tell yourself you tried and it didn't stick. Notice how these aren't simply thoughts. They are whole body events. The body learns to be a skeptic long before your conscious mind writes the critique. So what's really happening under the hood? There are 3 lenses I want you to hold simultaneously. Each one is partial, but together they build a coherent practice you can use. Call them metaphor, brain, and body. First, the metaphor. In some interpretations of quantum physics, used here purely as a metaphor for attention, people talk about the observer effect. The gist, in simple terms, is this. How something is measured changes what you see. We're not using this to claim that your thoughts literally collapse atoms into a fortune or heal a disease overnight. That would be a misuse of physics. Instead, think of the observer effect as an evocative way to notice that attention shapes experience. When you watch a plant, you don't cause it to grow by staring, but you change your relationship to it. You water it, you adjust its light, you notice when it needs care. Attention, like a caretaker, invites action. The metaphor nudges you toward agency. Second, the brain. Modern neuroscience describes your brain as a prediction machine. It's constantly issuing forecasts about what will happen next based on the patterns it has learned. Predictive coding is the term some researchers use to describe how the brain reduces surprise. It minimizes the gap between expectation and sensory input. When you rehearse a future state, consistently, with feeling, you create predictive templates. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, allows those templates to strengthen over time. Practicing a new internal script can make your nervous system less surprised when circumstances shift. Research suggests the brain doesn't always care whether a memory came from the past or a vivid rehearsal. Both can alter neural pathways. Again, this is not a promise of a guaranteed outcome, but an invitation to behave in ways that make new outcomes more likely. Third, the body. Somatic memory is the bodily record of what has been true for you. If your system has lived through repeated rejection, your posture, your breath, the microtension in your jaw will all code for caution. This is adaptive. It kept you safe in previous contexts, but it also limits where your attention can land. To reach for a different reality, you must not only imagine it, but inhabit it, briefly and often, so the body learns the new pattern. Now stitch these three together. The metaphor shows you attention matters. Neuroscience shows your brain learns to expect. The body shows your nervous system stores a history that influences what you can sustain. The way forward is coherence, alignment between what you think, what you feel, and what you do. That alignment is what turns a wish into a trajectory. Let me be blunt. Most techniques in the personal development space become rituals of avoidance when they're not embodied. Vision boards, affirmations, scripting, they're all fine, elegant tools. But if you say affirmations in a voice that your body knows is a lie, you've created cognitive dissonance. The nervous system registers the mismatch and throws you back into the old timeline. The solution isn't necessarily to discard the tools. It's to add the somatic layer, the felt experience that lets your heart, breath, and posture sign the same check your mind writes. Here's a compact image to hold. The future self is like a radio station broadcasting at a certain frequency. Right now, your frequency is a composite of thought, emotion, and habitual movement. When those three are coherent, when the radio is tuned, the future song is loud enough for you to dance. When they're incoherent, mind saying yes while body says no, the signal is muffled and static takes over. Do not mistake this for a moral judgment. If your body resists, it's because it's protecting you. Resistance is evidence of territory being negotiated, not proof you failed. In fact, the louder the resistance, the closer you may be to a real shift. Think of resistance as the ego's last-ditch defense of the old identity. It will generate reasons, distractions, and urgency to keep you in what's known. That's normal. The question is, how will you respond to the noise? Here's the central offer. You can deliberately practice becoming the person who already has what you want. That practice looks like short, repeatable rituals that engage the imagination, elevate emotion, and change posture, so your nervous system learns a new baseline. Over time, small in-world actions that match that baseline will become natural. You don't have to wait for a cosmic event. You begin with micro-decisions that aggregate into a shift in trajectory. Before I give you the first practical calibrations, let me share an anecdote that makes this less abstract. I worked with someone, call her Maya, who believed her life required a dramatic overhaul before she could feel worthy of a romantic relationship. She was smart, kind, and chronically safe in the same loop. Swipe, check, scroll, avoid. Every imagined scene with a partner ended with her protective voice prepping for rejection. We didn't start by rewriting her whole life. We started with one 2-minute daily practice, a felt rehearsal in the morning where she stood by the window, softened her chest, breathed into the space behind the sternum, and imagined a small, specific scene, sharing coffee with someone who listens. She focused on the sensory detail, the warmth of the mug, the cadence of conversation, the light on the table. Crucially, she invited an elevated emotion, quiet gratitude, without forcing joy. After 2 weeks, she noticed her phone-checking impulse became less frantic. She chose one real-world invitation to respond to, rather than inventing reasons to avoid connection. I'm not saying that practice caused a relationship to appear like magic. What changed was her baseline nervous tone. She behaved more like someone who believed intimacy could be possible, and simple behaviors followed. That's the micro-mechanics we're after. Now a caution. The temptation is to turn this into a competitiveness of techniques. If I do the morning practice perfectly, the universe must respond. Don't fall for that. There are many variables you can't control. There are social, structural forces beyond your habits. The responsible way to work is to treat this as a skill, one with compounding returns but without promises of instantaneous payoff. Commit to the practice because it changes how you move through the world, not because it guarantees a particular outcome. If you're still with me, notice what's happening in your body as you read. Is your breath high and shallow? Are your shoulders near your ears? Or are you softening as if something permissible just arrived? This moment of noticing is essential. The path forward begins in attention, not just to the content of your thoughts, but to their tone in the body. I want to give you a minimal experiment right now, one you can do in 90 seconds that will begin to calibrate your system toward coherence. It's safe, simple, and designed to interrupt the old loop. Sit or stand with your feet rooted. Let your shoulders drop just a fraction. Place one hand lightly over the center of your chest. Feel the warmth of your palm. Take 3 slow, intentional breaths. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 1 count, exhale for 6 counts. With each exhale, soften the jaw, release the grip at the base of your neck. On the 3rd exhale, imagine the tiniest version of the thing you want. Not the whole epic script, just a slice, a sentence, an image, a sensory fragment. Maybe it's, I'm sitting at a table with someone who listens. Maybe it's, I wake up without dread about money. Hold that image for 30 seconds and allow one elevated emotion to arise. Gratitude, relief, quiet pride. Don't force ecstasy. Keep it plausible. Then release and go about your day. This micro-visit is not a substitute for long practice. It's a recalibration, an act of memory creation. When you do it repeatedly, you are training your predictive machine to include this as a possible next. Over time, the frequency of your daily life shifts. A small practical rule: keep the rehearsal short and feel-based. The longer you stay in a rehearsal style that your body rebels against, the more the nervous system will flag it as false. Quick, believable rehearsals win. Right now, some part of you is tempted to ask, but how long until I see real signs? That's the exact question that starts the checking loop. Instead, ask, what would it feel like if this were already true? When you move from outcome thinking to feeling thinking, you short-circuit the doubt that keeps you small. Let's pause for a micro-hook. Most teachers teach more doing. That's why most people stay the same. The courage isn't in adding more techniques, it's in doing less, better, embodied. Now let's deepen the model so you can see why these small acts matter at a systemic level. Consider your life as a field, a web of relationships, habits, and environmental signals. Within that field, your internal state radiates a pattern. People and opportunities don't magically arrive because of thought alone. They respond to the coherent signal you emit over time. In some interpretations of quantum fields, again used as metaphor, the notion of entanglement suggests that systems can be correlated across distance. I'm not claiming mystical causation here. Rather, treat entanglement as a useful image. Your internal state is not isolated. It moves through your posture, the tone of your voice, the way you accept invitations, and these all influence how others and the field respond. Neuroscience supplies a tidy complement. If you create new predictive patterns through rehearsal and embodied practice, your brain reduces prediction error when you encounter experiences that match the rehearsal. In plain language, repeat the felt experience long enough, and the world will start to feel less foreign when aligned opportunities appear. The brain becomes less surprised, and surprise is often what triggers fear-based reactivity. We also need to name the practical traps. One is the desire loop I described earlier. Imagine, doubt, check, reinforce lack. Another is the technique trap, the belief that more tools equal faster results. A third is mistaking transient signs for completion. You feel a sudden lift in mood and assume the timeline has collapsed. Celebrations are good, but premature certainty can breed complacency. The work we're doing is cumulative and habitual. You may be asking, is resistance always a sign I'm close? Not always. Sometimes resistance is a sign you need to slow down and build capacity. A small practice that's too big too fast will create backlash. That's why we talk about microdoses and gradual exposure. Think of repatterning like learning to lift weights. You don't immediately try a max lift. You increment the load. The nervous system learns in small, safe steps. At this point, you might wonder how identity shifts actually happen. Identity is not an ethereal proclamation you make and then forget. Identity is a pattern of behavior, attention, and physiology. It expresses itself as little choices: how you reply to a message, how you spend your morning, who you allow to influence your mood. To change identity, you must create new patterns that are more probable than the old ones. Those patterns require repetition and felt experience. One crucial strategy is ritualized visits to your future self. These visits are not daydreaming marathons. They are short, vivid, and embodied. Twice daily visits of 3 to 5 minutes are often more effective than an hour-long weekend fantasy session. Why? Because the nervous system learns via frequency and consistency. Tiny rehearsals repeated form a new baseline. Another essential element is heart-brain coherence. This phrase is used in some contemporary coaching and somatic frameworks to describe alignment between felt emotion and cognitive clarity. When gratitude or appreciation is genuinely felt in the body, while the mind holds an intention, the two systems inform each other in a way that's more cohesive than thought alone. There's research suggesting that emotional states modulate neural firing patterns. We're not declaring definitive science here, only pointing to a practical heuristic. Elevated, authentic feeling makes rehearsal stick. Let me give you a compact practice to begin integrating these ideas in a way that respects your nervous system. It's safe, 3 minutes, and designed to be repeatable. Stand or sit. Put your feet on the ground, drop your shoulders. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your lower belly. Breathe slowly. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. On the second inhale, imagine a small detail of your future life and feel one plausible emotion. On the exhale, imagine that detail expanding by the width of your palm. Repeat this for 3 rounds. End by stating one small action you can take in the next hour that aligns with that image. Nothing dramatic, just one micro step. One cautionary note: keep the action tiny. The neural system deepens new patterns when it can consistently perform the supporting behavior. A tiny, repeated action trumps a grand promise that never gets implemented. As you sit with this, notice the resistance in the mind. It will say things like, "This is psychological trickery," or "I don't have time," or "This won't work." Those are valid feelings. Name them. Then return to the practice. Naming resistance is itself a somatic intervention. It takes the power out of the fearful narrative. A final structural point before we move into deeper practices later: success in this work is not measured by one grand victory. It's measured by a shift in baseline. The baseline is the emotional and physiological default you return to. If over months that baseline lifts, less reactivity, more openness, different choices, you've shifted trajectories. The evidence is small and accumulative: softer triggers, micro-synchronicities, easier decisions that align with your future self. Those are the signals of timeline movement. You've heard the theory. You've felt a few small calibrations. You've done a micro practice. You may be tempted to ask for the complete roadmap right now, the exact sequence, the durations, the rituals that will ensure the change. That hunger for a formula is understandable. It's the mind's attempt to control outcome. There is a roadmap, but it's not a turnkey guarantee. It's a set of principles, practices, and progressive exposures that require steady application. Here's the turning point you need to hold. Everything you want is within your reach when you deliberately become the person who would already have it. That phrase contains both mercy and challenge. Mercy because it means your desire itself is not a condemnation, it's a pointer. Challenge because becoming that person requires doing things your past self might resist. It asks for small acts of courage repeated daily. We're about to move into the specific tuning practices that take this from concept to embodied skill. I will guide you through breath, posture, felt rehearsal, and micro-actions. How to structure them in a sustainable daily cadence. I will teach you how to notice resistance as a signal instead of an obstacle, and how to troubleshoot the common traps that keep people stuck like quicksand. Before we step into the how-to, take a moment to inventory your internal climate. What is the dominant feeling you carry when you think about your desire? Is it scarcity, curiosity, fatigue, hope, shame? Don't judge the answer, just name it. This simple naming gives you a baseline from which to measure change. If you're willing, do one more short practice with me now. Sit with your spine straight, soften your face, and imagine, for 1 minute, the smallest, most believable scene that implies your desire is already in motion. Keep it concrete. Add one sensory detail. Allow one plausible emotion. Breathe into it. When the minute ends, note where your energy has shifted, if it did. This is the first datum, the first data point. Future shifts will be measured in similar micro-registrations, small, honest, cumulative. You are not being asked to fake it till you make it in a dishonest way. You are being invited to rehearse the truth that your future is partly composed of what you practice now. This is practice in the truest sense. Repeated action to change capacity, not a performance to convince others. In the next section, we will step into the detailed daily architecture, the morning visit, the midday reset, the evening consolidation, and I'll give you precise timing, language prompts, and ways to weave these rehearsals into real-world decisions so they compound. We'll also explore the anatomy of resistance in more detail, what it sounds like, how to anticipate it, and where to find the courage to persist when the nervous system protests. Finally, we'll look at the subtle indicators that show the timeline is bending toward you, what to notice so you can stay encouraged without misreading every coincidence as cosmic confirmation. But before we go there, take stock again. How did the last 2 short practices land in your body? Did something shift? If so, write it down, or at least hold it in mind. If not, that's also data. We are beginning a gentle experiment together, and experiments require observation. One more thing before the practical architecture. Understand that identity is revised through social practice as well as solitary rehearsal. The people you spend time with will either support or slow your repatterning. That does not mean leaving friends who love you. It means choosing, where possible, to share your emerging vision with people who can witness you without needing to fix you, or to seek 1 or 2 allies who will celebrate the small steps rather than demand proof. Social reinforcement is a powerful amplifier. Now imagine the path ahead as a corridor. On the far wall, a door labeled with the life you want. We've taken the first steps down that corridor. You've reframed desire, you've learned the 3-lens model, and you've practiced 2 micro-calibrations. Ahead lies structured practice, rituals, troubleshooting, and signs to watch for. We will open that door inch by inch. The commitment required isn't dramatic, it's consistent. It's choosing a handful of micro-steps that your nervous system can learn to accept. As we move forward, remember the title that brought you here. Discover the truth. Everything you want is within your reach. I honor that claim as a guiding star, with an important qualification. Within reach through practice, coherence, and embodied identity change, not through guaranteed outcomes. Keep that distinction in your pocket like a compass. When you're ready, breathe together with me. 3 slow inhales and exhales, bringing your attention to the simple fact of your presence. Notice any new space. Then we'll take the next step, practical tuning, sectioned into morning, midday, and evening templates with exact language and timings so you can integrate this into a busy life. We'll also map the most common pitfalls and how to course correct without losing momentum. Take your time. When you're ready, we'll begin. Begin with a gentle structure you can actually keep. The morning visit is short and deliberate, 2 to 5 minutes that set the tone for the day. When you wake, before the scroll, before the "we need coffee" justification, sit on the edge of the bed or stand by a window. Plant your feet so you feel contact with the floor. Drop your shoulders. Place one hand over your sternum and the other over your belly. Take 3 slow breaths. Inhale for 4, pause 1, exhale for 6. On the second inhale, bring to mind one tiny, believable slice of the life you want. A single scene so specific it could be described in a sentence. Not the entire novel, a still life moment. See the light on a table, the texture of a fabric, the first sound in the room. Allow one elevated emotion to arise. Quiet gratitude, mild relief, soft pride. Hold it for 30 to 60 seconds, breathing with it. Then, name one small action you can take in the next hour that aligns with that image. A text you'll send, a task you'll choose differently, a posture you'll hold while speaking to someone. Keep the action so small you cannot find an excuse not to do it. That's your morning seed, the felt signal you broadcast into the rest of your day. Midday is the reset point. You don't need to carve an hour. You need an anchor. Schedule a 2-minute reset after lunch or mid-afternoon. Stand with your feet grounded, shake your hands loose, roll your shoulders, and breathe. Bring the same micro image from the morning, but make it slightly larger. Add a new sensory detail, a tone of conversation, a small gesture. Spend 90 seconds inhabiting that feeling. If any resistance appears, a tightening, a mental rebuttal, name it softly, "Hello, resistance," and lengthen the out-breath by 2 counts to dissipate the knot. Then take one micro-action. Choose the email you respond to differently. Decline one autopilot invitation. Or walk to the window and look out as if the future you invited were already possible. These tiny recalibrations compound. Twice daily visits, morning seed and midday reset, keep the nervous system familiarizing itself with a different baseline. The evening consolidation closes the loop. Before bed, do a 3 to 5 minute consolidation. Lie or sit quietly, breathe deliberately, and replay one moment from your day where you acted in alignment, however small. Feel the nuance, the way your posture softened when you spoke up, the tiny steadiness in your hands when you completed a task, the choice to scroll less. Allow an authentic, modest gratitude. And by imagining a micro version of tomorrow that sits in line with the trajectory you're cultivating. This practice ties new behaviors to memory consolidation and prepares the predictive system for a slightly different next day. Language matters. When you rehearse, use present tense, sensory-rich sentences that sound plausible in your mouth. Instead of "I will be secure," try "Right now, I notice how my shoulders are softer when I choose this." Instead of global affirmations that your nervous system will register as false, pick statements your body can accept. "I can feel a small trust in this moment," or "There is one steady step I can take today." These are the kinds of sentences that bridge mind and body. They do not perform coercion, they create evidence. Make the practices cumulative and trackable. Use a simple habit tracker or a pocket notebook and note 3 items: the image, the emotion, and the micro-action. The point is not to create performance pressure. The point is to record data. Over weeks, you will have a ledger of tiny evidence that supports a different baseline. Keep the ledger private. The habit is for you, not for the algorithm. Now let's get pragmatic about timing and scaling. If 2 daily visits feel impossible, begin with 1 and grow to 2. If 5 minutes is too long, start with 90 seconds. I recommend a minimum template: a morning seed, 90 to 180 seconds, a midday reset, 60 to 120 seconds, and an evening consolidation, 3 to 5 minutes. These 3 can be done without special equipment and with minimal disruption to a busy life. The frequency matters more than length. Short, consistent exposures beat occasional marathon rehearsals. When you craft your images, make them small enough to be believable and precise enough to feel real. Instead of "I have a thriving career," choose "I sit in a meeting and offer one idea that lands." Instead of "I'm healthy," choose "I wake with energy and move quietly for 20 minutes." Small specificity helps the brain build concrete predictive models. Vague abstractions leave the nervous system unconvinced. Let's talk about microactions and how they anchor identity. Identity changes when the probability of certain behaviors rises. Behavior is made probable by microactions repeated until they no longer feel like choices. For career, a microaction might be sending one targeted email to someone you admire. For relationships, it might be answering a message with curiosity rather than testiness. For health, it might be drinking a glass of water upon waking and walking for 5 minutes. These are not grand gestures. They are the atomic units of identity. A practical way to pick microactions is to ask, if I were the person I want to be, what would I do in the next 10 minutes? Choose one thing. Do it. Repeat. The repetition rewrites probability. You'll meet resistance. Expect it. We've named resistance as a protective adaptive system, your nervous system attempting to preserve the known. But resistance wears many faces and requires different responses. There's the obvious mental resistance, thoughts that argue reality isn't ready. For that, name the thought, shift attention to the breath, and return to a tiny rehearsal. There's somatic resistance, tightness, fatigue, a spike in heart rate. For that, slow the breath, drop the shoulders, and scale the practice back so it remains believable. There's social resistance, the people who can't tolerate your subtle change, because it threatens their map of you. For that, verbalize your boundary in modest terms or limit exposure to those relationships while you build internal coherence. There's the technique trap, trying more tools instead of deepening one practice. Answer technique mania with fewer repetitions done more faithfully. One reframing that helps in the heat of resistance: treat it as a surface symptom of progress. The louder the defense, the more territory is being negotiated. That does not mean you should persist blindly through intense distress. If resistance becomes overwhelming, pause, breathe, and choose a smaller rehearsal, or seek outside support. This work is not a replacement for therapy or clinical care. It's an additional, embodied skill set. Now let's unpack the anatomy of the most pernicious trap, the checking loop, and how to interrupt it. The loop begins with a mental evaluation. Is this working? You check external metrics, notifications, bank balances, new emails, and you look for immediate confirmation. If confirmation is absent, doubt intensifies. The antidote is to redirect attention to internal metrics. Did my baseline shift today? Did my heart feel less constricted? Did a reflex that used to pull me away soften? These are sub-public changes, but reliable signs. Build a short internal audit checklist. Did I breathe into my chest today? Did I hold my head a fraction higher when speaking? Did I choose one aligned microaction? If yes, log it. Doing so reorients the reward system away from external proof and toward lived practice. You will also misread signs. A sudden uplift in mood is not the same as full collapse to a new timeline. Celebrate the uplift, but see it as evidence your system is beginning to respond, not as a finality. Premature certainty removes the practice that produces the changes. Keep softness around wins. Let's get practical about social integration. The people you spend time with are part of the field. You do not need to abandon relationships that have been anchor points for you, but you should be strategic about whom you share nascent changes with. Choose two categories of social contacts: witnesses and maintainers. Witnesses are people who can hold your small experiments without needing immediate proof. Friends, mentors, or members of a community who mirror curiosity. Maintainers are the steady network that keeps everyday life stable. Coworkers, family. Share your micro steps with witnesses. Let maintainers observe without expectation. Over time, as your baseline shifts, the field around you will adjust. People respond to new signals: your voice tone, your invitations, your presence. When you begin to act from the new baseline, you will find some relationships deepen and others recalibrate. That's normal. Here are specific troubleshooting moves when the nervous system pulls you back to old patterns. If you notice increased checking behaviors, shorten the rehearsal and increase the sensory detail. Make the image more concrete and less speculative. If emotions flood and you feel overwhelmed, move into a grounding action. Press your feet into the floor, name 5 objects in the room, and breathe. If your body refuses to hold the image, scale the practice back to 30 seconds and repeat 3 times a day. If shame or self-criticism appears, practice naming it aloud. There's shame. Then follow with a compassionate corrective sentence in present tense. Right now, I can notice and choose a believable step. Naming followed by gentle redirection is one of the fastest ways to dissolve the charge. As you deepen the practice, adopt a few advanced habits. The first is layered rehearsal. Layered rehearsal strings together micro-scenes into a short narrative arc. 2 to 4 scenes, each 20 to 40 seconds long, connected by a common emotional thread. For example, for career. Scene 1, walking into the office calmly. Scene 2, offering a concise idea in a meeting. Scene 3, receiving appreciative feedback. Scene 4, ending the day with a small celebration. The emotional thread is quiet confidence and steady breathing. Layered rehearsal primes not just isolated moments, but a reliable sequence of behaviors that the nervous system begins to expect. Another advanced habit is context switch training. We train the new state in the place where old patterns are strongest. If your dating anxiety spikes at restaurants, rehearse your future self in the restaurant setting repeatedly. The chair under you, the sound of cutlery, the light, the texture of conversation. The more contexts in which your nervous system accepts the new pattern, the more robust the identity shift. A third advanced habit is the coherence anchor. Choose a somatic anchor, a gesture, a breath pattern, or a phrase you place in the body that you can access anywhere. It might be the gentle press of cursor fingers on your thigh, a 3-count exhale sequence, or a soft internal mantra like steady. Practice pairing this anchor with your rehearsal so that over time the anchor elicits the felt state automatically. In social settings, this becomes your low-key calibration tool. Let's address measurement and patience. Progress rarely arrives as a dramatic event. It shows up as a different baseline. To measure it without falling into checking loops, build a slow-moving metric. Every week, answer 3 questions in a private journal. What small choice did I make this week that aligned with my future self? What resistance presented itself and how did I respond? What felt easier this week than last? These weekly reflections create a narrative of progress that's not dependent on external validation. Now the signs of timeline shift to watch for. Subtle, practical, and low hype. First, emotional baseline changes. Your reactivity softens. You might notice a quiet space between stimulus and response where you can choose differently. Second, decision ease. Choices that were formerly difficult begin to feel natural. You find yourself picking aligned options without the usual internal debate. Third, microsynchronicities. Small opportunities that coherently match your rehearsals. An email, a conversation, a casual introduction. These are not miraculous guarantees, they are compatible feedback. Fourth, social changes. People treat you with a slightly different tone. Invitations shift, boundaries are respected more easily. Fifth, somatic evidence. Your posture subtly changes. Your breathing becomes steadier. Your mornings require fewer corrective rituals. These are the signs that the field is responding to a consistent signal from you. One essential practice for deeper integration is ritualization. Choose 3 rituals and do them consistently for 90 days. The rituals should be short and meaningful. The morning seed, the midday reset, and the evening consolidation. Add 1 micro-action per week and 1 micro-integration task. A small choice that requires courage in the world, like intentional vulnerability in a conversation. Rituals create ritualized memory. Ritualized memory becomes a soil where identity grows. If you want to accelerate integration without falling into technique hysteria, lean into 2 things: frequency and felt authenticity. Frequency trains the predictive brain. Authenticity keeps the nervous system from rejecting the rehearsal as false. That combination is powerful. Let's return briefly to the metaphorical scaffolding. Attention as caretaker, brain as predictor, body as memory. When you rehearse with frequency and authenticity, you're doing 3 things at once. You're tending the internal garden, you're writing new predictive architecture, and you're signaling safety to the body. Over time, the garden grows a different mixture of plants. That shift is the within your reach the title promises. Not a guarantee, but a practical possibility made more likely by calibrated practice. A short advanced protocol for days when the world feels heavy. Spend 10 minutes in the following sequence. 2 minutes of breath to sell. 3 minutes of layered rehearsal with sensory detail. 3 minutes of writing 1 sentence describing an aligned micro-action you will take within the next 24 hours. 2 minutes of slow movement. Walk, stretch, open a window. This protocol engages breath, imagery, action, and environment in a way that scaffolds the system beyond pure imagination. Now let's talk about story and narrative. Humans love coherent stories. Your dominant life story, I don't deserve it, I'm always late, I'm unlucky, has been reinforced by decades of evidence and social echo. To shift identity, you must write micro-stories you can believe. These micro-stories are not lies. They are experimental narratives. Start with, there are small, steady moments when I act differently. Or, I am learning to hold myself with curiosity. Repeat them softly as you rehearse, then behave in line with them. Over months, these micro-stories accumulate into a new narrative that your brain and body can inhabit. One practical exercise for narrative editing. Select a recurring self-story and convert it into a microclaim that is both credible and aspirational. For instance, change "I always mess things up" to "I sometimes make mistakes and I often try again with gentleness." Rehearse that claim in your morning seed and then perform a micro-action that contradicts the old claim. The contradiction creates prediction error that, when carefully supported with practice, rewires expectation. I want to give you a compact troubleshooting script you can use when you feel stuck. When doubt arises, say to yourself, "This is doubt. It is understandable. I can notice it and still choose 1 small aligned step." Breathe for 3 counts. Take the step. Record it. That script is simple but effective because it acknowledges, recenters, and acts. The goal is to make action the default when you're unsure, not rumination. We need to be realistic about external variables. Social, economic, and structural factors shape outcomes. These practices are not a shield against systems, nor do they negate structural barriers. What they do is change your operating system, your tendencies, posture, approach, so you can perceive and act on opportunities differently and with more resilience. That change increases probability, not certainty. Hold that nuance like a compass. The pathway is inside you and linked to the world. It's not a magical bypass. One question people ask, how long before I see a change? There is no universal timeline. For some, micro-shifts appear in weeks, for others, months. The reliable predictor is consistency. The more faithfully you apply repeatable, believable rehearsals, the sooner you will notice baseline shifts. If you want a rule of thumb, think in seasons. Treat the first 90 days as a commitment window. Measure change in small data points, not in headline events. This keeps you honest and patient. Let's close with an integrative mini-practice that synthesizes everything you've learned and leaves you embodied. Stand with your feet grounded, soften your jaw, and take one long, slow inhalation that fills the belly and expands the ribs. Hold a count. Exhale for 6 counts and let your shoulders soften. Place your hands on your heart and lower belly. Bring to mind the smallest, most believable image of the life you're cultivating. Layer a second detail, a sound, a texture, a micro-behavior. Then name one tiny action you will take in the next hour. Feel the emotion associated with the image: mild gratitude, calm confidence, quiet relief. Breathe with that feeling for 60 seconds. End by stating aloud, in present tense and in a voice that feels plausible, I am learning to live toward this. Let the words settle in your chest for a moment. Notice any shift in posture or tone. Then, with a soft exhale, release the rehearsal and take the one micro-action. This practice is not magic, it's calibration. It's a way of telling your predictive system, your environment, and your body that a new pattern is being invited. Do it daily. Do it honestly. Track it privately. Remember the title that framed our work? Discover the truth. Everything you want is within your reach. That statement is a faithful guide when held with caution and practice. It means your desires are not indictments of lack, but invitations to inhabit a different self. It means reachable through steady, embodied alignment, thoughts, feelings, and actions coming into coherence, not through promise or instant outcome. If you're ready to take this beyond these free practices, there is a resource I've prepared that lays out a structured 90-day protocol with daily language prompts, layered rehearsals, context switch sequences, and troubleshooting scripts. A practical manual I call Frequency Recalibration. It's designed to support the work we've sketched here, not to be a shortcut. If you want that structured path, you'll find the link pinned in the description and the comments. Consider it a companion for people who want step-by-step integration rather than theory. Before you go, let's finish with a very short closing ritual. Sit or stand, breathe in gently for 4 counts, hold 1, breathe out for 6 counts. Bring to mind one small scene, one sentence that represents your next aligned move. Feel one plausible emotion. Say to yourself, I am practicing the person who already moves toward this. Breathe once more, soften your face, and carry the alignment into your next action. You've taken a courageous step just by listening and practicing so far. This is a skill you build with patience, kindness, and consistent tiny acts. Keep the practices short, believable, and repeated. Notice the small changes. Name resistance without shame. Celebrate the mundane wins. Over time, the field around you will begin to respond to the person you are becoming. If you want the guided 90-day protocol and the compact language prompts to make this habit airtight, click the link in the description or the pinned comment to download the Frequency Recalibration ebook and join the guided program. It's a resource to help you move from isolated experiments into a sustainable daily architecture. Breathe now, one last time with intention. Inhale, hold, long exhale, and step into your day knowing that the life you desire is not a distant myth, but a practice away.